How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So like any other week, if you want a chance to one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below. Just a couple announcements. So yes, my car is not in here. I'm actually waiting on a drop off for a head gasket job on, you already know what car it is. But aside from that, I actually left it at work because I took a loaner home. My kid and I went camping this weekend, so a Ridgeline was just better. I was able to take a loaner, which was great, worked out for everyone. He was super excited. He loves pickups, so Ridgeline was the right opportunity to go ahead and bring it and kind of kill two birds with one stone here. So that worked out great. And then also, I'd like to implement more of a positive, news or content in the form of you guys providing me something higher mileage, Hondas and Acuras I'm mostly interested in. If you want to send me a short video, whether it be a horizontal or, a portrait mode or whatever, and just a little bit of details of that video. Maybe just do like a walk around. You don't even have to say anything. Your voice doesn't have to be on the phone, on the video and whatnot. Just give me a little bit of walk around, some details, some maintenance, some mileage, things that you replaced, things you haven't replaced, things of that nature, mostly above like 150 or so, just to kind of bring some positive content to this channel. And I know a lot of it is negative or just, it's honest information, but, a lot of it is, negative, and I'd like to bring some more, just positive stuff to the channel. So if you want to go ahead, you could go and submit that. I'll provide my email in the description section down below. Just send your video, just quick walk around, maybe the interior, whatever, and just the mileage and, repairs that you have done and whatnot. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the week. And it is my thoughts on putting a filter or a mesh in the intake ducts of these hybrids. So Honda hybrids don't use filters. I've never seen one. I'm not sure what the reasoning is. I'm not sure if they're implemented in future models or whatnot. But from what I've seen, there is no filter for the hybrid battery system. So over time, it does collect a little bit of debris, but it wouldn't be that much that you'd actually be amazed or anything of that nature. Now, I personally wouldn't go ahead and put something there because you don't want to restrict airflow and actually create a problem that isn't already there. Now, if you want to do something, a bigger mesh, if you have like maybe a dog or something like that, then maybe that's something you want to consider. But aside from that, just a normal car, I probably would try to stay away from any sort of mesh or filter or anything like that. But if you want to go ahead and try it and provide some feedback, I'd be very open to hear your results, and maybe the community would be as well. But from what I see, you may be creating a bigger problem than there already at this point. So hopefully that answers the question for you. This next question is intake/cooling modifications that matter and don't matter. So this question actually came about because I've recently had a video on the TLX Type S platform of bypassing the coolant that runs through the throttle body, and essentially have 180, 200 degree coolant running through that throttle body and warming up that throttle body. Now, obviously, this modification is not for everybody. I've done this on basically all my cars that are not, daily driven by like the family or whatnot. But all my cars that I drive and modify and stuff like that, I do this on all my cars. So does it make that much of a difference? Probably not. But on a turbocharged vehicle in specific, every little bit helps. Now, this car dramatically reduces power as the intake temperatures drop. So that's why I say every little bit matters. So obviously, the intercooler is going to be your best bang for the buck as far as keeping everything cool, but it only does so much. These cars still have a tendency to heat soak. So again, every modification does help. The one modification you should not be doing is those intake gaskets. Those things, in theory, they are great. They do work great up until the point where they warp, and then you have a vacuum/boost leak. So that's where the problems begin. The car starts running not so good. And you may have some misfires and stuff like that. So yes, if it's maybe a track dedicated car or a weekend owning car, where you're not, racking up the miles over and over and over, constantly running it hotter, then maybe that's something for you. For a daily driver, I promise you, at one point or another, those gaskets will warp. So they're made out of plastic, some sort of material. Everyone makes them out of different materials. And I actually have some for my car. Somebody sent me a prototype to install my car, and I never did because I didn't want to put something out there that I think may be an issue down the line. And there has been a couple of them that installed a different manufacturer brand, and sure enough, a year and a half down the road, they went ahead and had issues and they warped. They sent me pictures, and idle was weird, and the car just drove weird, didn't make full power, things of that nature. So obviously colder intakes, if one is applicable to your setup, great. Ceramic coat, downpipes, stuff like that, that's all good stuff. I don't like the heat wrap because that holds in moistures and actually tends to cause more issues where cracks start developing, especially at the weld points. Now, if you ceramic coat it, technically you have a barrier there, so that would be okay. My downpipe is ceramic coated, but it's not wrapped. I don't want to push my luck, but I do have the biggest intercooler and the only intercooler offered for the platform, along with the coolant bypass and the the downpipe is ceramic coated. Also, do not remove any shields from the exhaust setup. Add as many shields as possible or retain them if possible. I have a custom downpipe, so mine doesn't have them, but that's why I want the ceramic coating. Even if I had a function work downpipe or something where you could retain the shields, I probably still would have ceramic coated that as well. So hopefully that answers the question for you. The next question obviously won't apply to everyone, but what can an entry-level technician do to kind of move up the ranks and not stay, plateaued or flatline or anything like that? So some of you may come from a place where you have already experience. If you are starting at the bottom, and some of our guys started literally sweeping and cleaning the place and now are all the way up to A-techs, master techs and stuff like that. Obviously it's a very long process. Didn't happen overnight. But if you are an express tech or a C tech looking to move up, this is my recommendation. On your off time or when there's nothing else going on, so if the shop is slow, just shadow a senior tech, a B tech, an A tech, a master tech. Do not get in their way. Offer a hand. If they don't want any help, then step back. Sometimes this job can be very frustrating, and you don't want to take that frustration out on you, and you don't want to get in their way, and vice versa. But if they're doing maybe some breaks, maybe doing a timing belt, maybe ask a couple questions. Just shadow there. Offer your help. Offer the assistance if needed. If they're doing a transmission, don't get in the way, but don't feel like you can't ask any question. Now, obviously, the other person, depending who it is, may want help, may not want help, may want to work by themselves, may want to work in peace, maybe, whatever the situation is. But that is the best advice that I can have. On your time off, maybe come in an extra day for a couple of hours. Again, follow the senior tech, talk to your manager. Like, hey, I want to move up. What steps can I take? I don't want to stay stuck changing, oil and fluids and filters the rest of my life. So just, kind of voice that concern and that you want to go ahead and keep progressing up the ladder, step by step, little by little. So I think that's the best recipe. Now, you could go to school for all this stuff, obviously, but a lot of times what they teach you in school is theory. Now, I went to vocational school when I was in 10th and 11th grade. So by senior year, I was working with my dad at his shop, and that was by far the best experience I had. And we worked with all different brands, all different manufacturers. And then in 2008, I went into a Honda, and that's where I've been at the same dealer since. And exactly, I started at a C-Tech level, and I was just, hourly for a couple of months there. And that's another issue I have, because if you go and you were hourly before coming from Express, going to a C-Tech, now you are flat rate, there's a ton of pressure on you. I would personally speak to management like, hey, I'd like to get my feet wet for the next 3 months or so, kind of get into the groove of things. Can I remain salary, even though it hurts you? At the end of the day, you're not feeling the pressure. You're going to make less mistakes, and everybody is going to win in that situation 9 out of 10 times. So that's what I recommend. Again, shadow the senior guys. Do not get in their way. Maybe if one is busy or one is not doing such a bigger job, go to the next guy. Get different points of views. That's also very important. Now, everybody kind of generally has the same idea, but sometimes different jobs, different angles, different ideas, different tools, different methods. It's always good to bounce ideas off of one another. I'm in a group chat with a whole bunch of Acura and Honda technicians, and not everybody knows everything. Anybody who tells you that is full of it. So, sometimes we run across an issue like, hey, he's seen it. Hey, I've seen it. Hey, she's seen it. Maybe whatever the situation is in that scenario, it's always good to just get a second opinion and whatnot, and never, feel like you're being, aggressive or anything or getting in the way. But if somebody tells you, okay, I need my space, then obviously respect that. So hopefully that answers this question for you. So this next question is, are newer Hondas really that much less reliable than the older Hondas? And the simple answer is no. And allow me to explain, because I know at this point everyone's going like, WTF at the keyboard and whatnot. So again, allow me to explain here. So a lot of people seem to have a short-term memory, myself included, but I speak from experience. So when I started with Honda back in 2008, there was not 1 week where we didn't do 6, 7, 8 transmissions on the Odysseys, Pilots, Civics, and Accords. So all combined, we were doing about 7 or 8 transmissions a week. It was so bad that management was offering us money to come in our off days and replace these transmissions, because we couldn't keep up with the transmissions plus all the other issues going on at that time. So I started in 08. So our prime vehicles and our money-making vehicles at that time were like a 99 Civic, 02 Civic. We still had some 92, 95 Civics as well, 98 to 02 Accords. Those were our bread and butter. And the 03 Accords were just coming out of warranty. So we were doing a ton of work on those. We had plenty of cars come in with ignition coils going out, oil leaks galore, mounts on basically every V6 available. So Odysseys, Pilots at that time, Accord V6, those things were mount destroyers. You know, nowadays you don't see too many of those. All right. So I think the biggest issue here is, yes, we have the elephant in the room, the 1.5T, the head gaskets on a 2.0, all that good stuff. Yes, that is a tremendous issue. I think the biggest difference here is that the amount or the cost of the repairs is so much higher for those repairs versus the other things back in the day, but they did add up. So, and sorry for the fly that's going around. But again, we had oil leaks, ball joints. These cars, some of them needed ball joints every 30,000 miles. Horrible. Compliance bushings, same thing. Engine mounts. Again, oil leaks. All these cars had time belts, a lot more maintenance on them. At the time belt time, we were doing oil pump reseals. All of them needed tune-ups, a lot more involved than today's cars, because they had wires, cap rotors, things of that nature, or a lot of them did. We had main relays was a huge thing. Ignition switches was another huge thing. And so on and so forth. Calipers getting stuck, struts blown prematurely. So there was a ton of issues. Again, none as severe as the head gasket and injector issue that we have nowadays, but labor rates have tremendously gone up as well. So when I started in 2008, the labor rate at the shop was $90. Now we're talking $190. So it went up $100. So when you multiply that, so a 2-hour job, let's say, used to be $180. Now we're talking nearly 400 hours. So it is a huge difference. And that's where I think a lot of people, obviously hurts them financially. But it wasn't to say that Hondas back in the day weren't breaking. I promise you they were. That's why all these places were in business back in the day, and they're in business today, because these cars, unfortunately, will continue to have issues. And then that's why I stress getting the right type of vehicle and doing your maintenance on time. A lot of times, proper maintenance will yield great results 99 out of 100 times. You're always going to have that one person, unfortunately, that does all their maintenance and something still went wrong. But if you do your maintenance, use the proper fuel and all that good stuff, chances are it's going to be on your side, and you're going to be able to have minimum unexpected repairs, let's say here. So again, I don't think the older Hondas were a lot better than the newer Hondas. I just think the issues nowadays are just so much more expensive. Whether that makes it a better car or not, that's up for you guys to debate. But again, I'd love to hear your opinion. I know, people will probably argue against this, but again, I've worked with Honda since 2008. I've worked on them way before that. I've had a lot of experience over the years, and they've all had different issues, but we made some great progress. Unfortunately, the biggest thing here nowadays, we're talking head gaskets and injectors, obviously both of them being big ticket items. But other than that, I think Honda has made pretty good progress on everything else. So let me know what you think. I know a lot of you guys are going to have opinion on this, and it's fine. That's just my personal experience. And again, we were paid to come in on extra days, and we were doing transmissions on some of these 3, 4, 5 times. There wasn't like, all right, you did it and I'll see you in 100, 200,000 miles. No, we did it in, a trans at 40,000, let's say, and at 80,000, we were doing the same exact transmission again, and then again at 120,000. So that's just what it was, and there's no denying that. So hopefully that answers this question for you. Last but not least, question of the week. And once again, if you want one of your questions being answered in a video just like this one, make sure you drop a comment down below. So when is the proper time to repair a car versus junking it? And I think I've talked about this already in the past, but we'll go through it again just in case for anybody missed it. At this point, there's so many of these videos, I'm not even sure what questions I have answered and what not. But anyways, so this is the problem that we are seeing. And again, this is at my dealer and probably a lot of dealers as well. There were a lot of bad purchases during the post-COVID era that people just wanted to get into a car, whatever the situation was, right? So we're talking 1920, so 5 years down the road, a lot of those cars are turning older. So if you drove it the average amount of mileage, it's not too bad. If you've driven it for Uber, rideshare services, then obviously at that point you racked up a ton of mileage. Now the problem with that is you racked up so much mileage, and if you did like a 7-year loan, you still owe money on the car. Now your car has 250,000 miles, and you owe 5, 6, 7, 8 grand on it, and you need a head gasket, let's say. Now you have a $5 grand repair. Your car is not really worth much, and you still owe money on it. So what are your choices? At that point, you could either roll that money into the next payment and keep the cycle going. You could repair it, or you could try to scrap the car at that point and just start fresh. You still have that loan. So that's a big issue to have, and unfortunately, an issue that too many people are having. So I think the right time to repair versus replace, I'm always going to lean on the side of repair. And I know you guys are gonna say, well, yeah, you make money off of it. Yeah, I do, you're right. But let's say you need to spend $1,000, $1,500 on a vehicle on average per year. That's still way cheaper than our average payments that people are facing nowadays of around $700 or so a month, which is ridiculous. So yes, if you have to spend $1,500, $2,000 on a car that's paid off a year, it's still way cheaper than paying $700 a month for that newer car. Obviously, it's going to be newer. It's going to have newer tech and stuff like that. That's kind of where you have to see, what you want versus what you don't want and whatnot. So I'm always going to say to keep it as long as possible. Especially if you have like a great car, like an HRV or something 2.0 naturally aspirated port injector, something like that. The cost to maintain those is very, very, cost efficient. So I would say keep them as long as possible. If the car needs a ton of repairs, let's say you got quoted for 3-4 grand. You kind of like, yeah, I want something new. I'm not sure. You don't owe anything on it. Maybe you trade it in or whatnot, and you could put that money to a new car. Then great. If you need that 3-4 grand and that's all the car needs, and you have a great running vehicle for next 1 to 2 years, that's not that bad considering on a new car you'd be paying that payment anyways, and you'd have to get a down payment, and your insurance coverages are different. So a lot to digest here. There's no perfect answer in my opinion. I think personally, again, try to maintain it when you get it. People say, well, it's a new car, it doesn't need maintenance. Well, no, that's not true. At year one, more or less, you're talking filters already. You're talking rotates. You're talking alignment. By year 2, you're talking fluids and repeat of those filters, rotate, potentially tires at the time already. So at the 2-year-old mark, you're already making payments and doing the same maintenance you would have been doing on your old car if you maintained it properly from the get-go. So again, no perfect answer here, but obviously if you got quoted 10 grand, the car is a 98 Civic, it's not worth it. Although some people, may like to do it. About a couple times a week, I tell people, all right, in a nice way, this is time. It's time to let the car go. It's in your best interest to just get something new. It's not worth the repair. The car's unsafe. You need way too much, whatever the situation is. And I'm honest with people, if the car's not worth it, I'm going to say it's not worth it. You should look into something else at this point. It's just, if you spend $5 grand on a car here and you go and it gets flooded tomorrow and your insurance is going to give you $1,000, it doesn't make sense. But, everyone's financial situation is different as well. So I can't speak, in that. I could just tell them what, I think it's the best move for them financially. But, everyone has a different financial situation. So they have to go ahead and figure that out. And we have some great sales guys in our actual building that often talk to customers. They'll go see what they could do for them. If they agree on something, great. If not, then a lot of times they'll come back and they say, hey, can you give me the top 3 things that the car needs just to get me the next couple months or so? And we do that for them, no problem. We prioritize the issues or whatnot. But, again, everyone's situation is different. So hopefully that answers the question for you, and I'll catch everyone on the next one.